Good morning, everyone. I hope I'm catching some of you live. If you can hop on, please do. And let me know if you have any questions. But there's a couple things that I wanted to chat about just as we are closing up our first week. First off, let's talk scale. Let's talk what might be in that number right now in case you are hopping on the scale. And the first question, how often should I weigh myself? That is really super individual in terms of what is your attachment to that number, because please know it's gonna fluctuate at least 2 pounds. Like if you tell me you're up 2 pounds, I really don't care. If you're up 3 pounds, I also do not care, because you did not put on 3 pounds of fat overnight. You absolutely did not do that. So understand that there's going to be daily fluctuations based on several factors. So for me, understanding that, I personally, I'll tell you, I do weigh myself every day and I take a weekly average. So then after a course of 6 months, I know that I'm either on track, I'm losing if I need to, or if I'm gaining muscle, I know what to expect. Because what we want is that long-term trajectory. Good morning, Tina, whether we're looking to gain muscle, whether we're looking to maintain, or whether we're looking to lose fat. And also, notice how I just said losing fat. Keep in mind that just because the scale, hi Sam, just because the scale is not moving does not mean you're not losing fat, because fat loss and weight loss are two totally different things. Because while you're losing fat, you might also be gaining some muscle. So the net on the scale is not gonna, it's gonna stay the same. So just know that. If you have a hard time looking at the scale and it affects your mood and that's all you can think about the rest of the day, don't do it. It should not have that much meaning in our lives. If I were you, and that's totally normal. If that's how you feel, I would just rely on pictures, how you're feeling, how your clothes are fitting. If you want to take the time to do some measurements, at least just a waist measurement, that would be another way to start to track your progress. But next week we'll talk about other ways. How do we know if what we're doing is actually working? So like I said, I weigh myself pretty much every day and I take an average so I can see what's truly going on. If you want to weigh yourself once a week, twice a week, or never. The only space that I struggle with only weighing once or twice a week is that what if that one day you hop on is the day that you were up, so it's not reflecting the average of what was going on. But you know yourself, you know what's going to keep you in a healthy mental state, so do what works for you. Now if you did hop on the scale and you're like, why is this number up? I'm eating my protein, I'm doing my workouts, but the number is up. So I just posted a graphic called the Fat Whoosh, and I briefly touched on this last week in our prep week. Basically when you work out, there's gonna be water around your muscles, and because as the muscles heal, there's water around them. Eventually that water is going to whoosh out, and that's what we call a fat whoosh. So it's totally normal to be retaining just a little bit more water right now. Same thing with your fat cells. When you start to lose fat, your body fills the fat cell with water to keep it the same size, just in case the fat's going to come back. It doesn't release that fat until it knows for real, okay, this person is serious this time, and I'm going to shrink down in size. The thing with this is why diets don't work. If you gain your weight back, they easily expand again. So our best bet is never to get overweight. So just know that, those of you that have like kids and things like that, like for us, if we're overweight, we have to deal with our current situation, but the best bet is to never be overweight. Anyway, so when I read that, I was like, oh, I have a big responsibility with my child. So that being said, if you're feeling a little puffy right now or the scale is up, it's probably just water from the workouts that you are doing. Second thing, everyone's doing a great job with your macros and participation, so that is awesome. But what I do want to say is if you are under on your macros, you're not doing yourself any favors. So I know sometimes you're like, oh, I'm eating even less than she prescribed to me. The reason I am conservative with my caloric deficit, first off, if you did tell me you want to lose fat, you are in a deficit, at least based on our general formula that we use. We want to lose weight eating as much as possible because our body adapts to what we give it. So if you start giving it only 1,200 calories, it's going to get used to operating on 1,200 calories. What does that mean? Systems slow down. Your body is protecting itself. So your metabolism starts to go down. We call it NEAT, like non-exercise activity, or these little things that you do, like, you know, a lot of people like fidget at their desk and they're like twiddling their pen and they're tapping their fingers and bumping their knee and tapping their heel. That stops. Because your body doesn't have enough energy to keep up with those little extra movements. So continue to hit those numbers and know that if you're under on your numbers, you're not going to have better progress or faster progress, or if you do, it's not necessarily long term. And I know that's really hard. You're like, a lot of you feel as though you're eating more than normal. What you're going to find though, we'll talk on Monday about how the weekend went. You know, a lot of us struggle on the weekends. And so your weekly average of calories, yeah, maybe you're only eating 1,200 on Monday through Thursday, Monday through Friday, but then on the weekends, you lose it. And it's because you're hungry from the week. It's because you're finally letting loose, and you end up eating way more on the weekends. That's bumping up your weekly average. But if you can be consistent with your number, eat 1,800 calories every single day, Monday through Sunday, your average is going to be actually lower. So what we want is to be steady with what we're giving our body, not giving it too little so it doesn't slow down. And you know, you've probably heard the term starvation mode. It's not starvation mode. It's just your body adapting. And those of you who are around too, a lot of you are doing, I've asked you to have a higher carb day. That's to prevent the adaptation, the slowing down of the systems. Some of you also have like a rest day macro. If you're around one, I do not want you doing a rest day macro. I just want you to get used to hitting your numbers. But when we give our body different amounts of food, then we can manipulate it. But round one, friends, your job right now is to hit your macros and be consistent with that. Make sure you're eating enough and still reaching your goals. Once you come to round two, then we can start to introduce a couple different things: high carb days, low carb days, rest day macros. But you really have to feed your body. It's going to use what you give it. It will burn what you give it. The more you give it, the more it burns. You do have to train your metabolism, right? Those of you, I haven't talked that much about reverse dieting because that's more at the end. If you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. Basically, I did a reverse diet for about 18 months. And I trained my metabolism to work for me so I could eat more and become like a metabolic machine. So you eat more and you burn more. One way to do that is to get your body adapted to it, but also put more muscle on your body. So it's really cool that you can manipulate your body and work towards your goals just based on what you are eating. But right now, I want you to focus on making sure you're hitting those numbers. That's really it. Weigh yourself, whatever you think is appropriate for you. If you can look at the number and not get attached to it and not let it change your mood, weigh yourself every day and take an average. Because here's the other double edge of the sword. It's called the scale paradox. You look at that number and you see a bad number and you're like, oh, this is never going to work. I'm not going to do this. And you just quit. Or you see a great number and you're like, oh my gosh, I did so great. I can back off now. So when we look at that number, we start telling ourselves stories. And if you're not really clear on knowing exactly what that number represents, and you just have to be really clear, and you have to be mentally strong to not let that number dictate your actions. It's just information. So keep looking at it as only one piece of information. It is not the whole case, okay? There's so much else going on. But all that being said, please keep doing what you are doing. Brooks. And I will talk to you. Brooke says hi. And then we will talk to you tomorrow morning. You guys have a great Saturday.